Hey, it's Gregg Gutfeld, and this is the one. Hey, you know who I have today? I have Armond White. He's one of my favorite film critics, not simply because of the films he picks that he likes or dislikes. I just enjoy his writing. He's a great writer. I came upon him when he was writing for the New York Press, right, which was a free New York paper, Armond. And I was reading, and I go, "Well, this guy's different." And you're known. I mean, you've written for a lot of publications: The Nation, obviously New York Times, First Things, Film Comment, Columbia Journalism Review, Slate, the City Sun. But you're kind of known for being provocative because of your contrarian film taste. And so and as an example, your review of Get Out,
right,
became the first to break the film's 100 positive score on Rotten Tomatoes, which must have made you more hated than anybody in America because, according to law, you have to love the movie Get Out.
That's right. Only hated among the right people.
Yes, exactly. And then
right.
I think it was the same thing with at least Call Me By Your Name. If you didn't like that movie, I think you were like, there was a special place in hell, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But you like movies that a lot of people dismiss. I would say kind of like mainstream fare, like you'll like a G.I. Joe movie, right?
If it's good, sure.
Yeah.
I like movies when they're good.
Yeah.
I don't like them just because they're sold to me.
Right.
And I think we're in an era now where people they feel that they were born to be consumers, and if you're selling me something, I love it.
Yeah.
But I want good stuff.
So what are they trying to sell us now? It's like I am biased when I feel like somebody's selling me something. Mm-hmm. I will say, like, Call Me By Your Name, all right? I felt like I was being instructed that I had to like this movie.
Sure.
That I was being sold a perspective that I had to accept. And I actually liked the actors and liked the people in it. I just felt like I was being sold something. Is that kind of what you mean? Or
I suspect that you felt that you were being sold a bill of goods because they were familiar.
Right.
And everything that happened in that movie, all the dialogue, all the characters and situations, It's like what happens in a lot of movies these days. It's like there's a checklist.
Yeah.
There's a checklist of politically correct attitudes that must be put on screen, and the filmmakers go through the checklist. And unless you're a moron, any audience member will see that they're watching a checklist, and any thinking audience member will resent that.
Yeah, I feel that way. You know, there were things that I liked about Get Out, and then I just felt like, okay. You know, and actually, it's Jordan Peele, right?
Jordan Peele, yeah.
I felt like the ending of the movie was a big letdown. It was a cop-out, I guess. Why didn't you like Get Out?
It seemed too obvious to me. It seemed to be, well, you know, I'm not a teenager.
Yeah.
And so I can remember the blaxploitation movies from the 70s. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those were known as get whitey movies.
Right.
So I've seen that happen before.
Right.
And I suspect that millennial audiences aren't aware of that, so they aren't aware of all the get whitey ploys that were in the script for Get Out. So that get whitey movies of the 70s often had their own checklist from the 1970s, and I saw that checklist again in Get Out, and I don't need that.
Yeah, you know, I want to ask you a couple of movies in the past few years that I liked. Were by the same guy, and I don't know. Also, I like Kurt Russell was in one. Bone Tomahawk.
Bone Tomahawk? Oh, no.
Did you like that? I love that movie. You didn't like it?
I didn't like it at all.
Oh, really?
It was torture.
No, it was torture.
It was torture.
But it was great torture.
It's torture and tedious.
Well, okay.
Talk about TNT.
To your point, there were like long patches of like okay, when you see a movie this is such a funny experiment. When you see a movie the first time, and you like something, you don't notice the tedious parts. And then when you watch it with a friend and you say, hey, you got to see this movie, then you notice the stuff that you didn't notice before. And you go, okay, there were some gaps. Now, the same problem, I would say that, which is also one of my favorite movies, which was Brawl and Cell Block 99.
Oh, the director's follow-up.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, I love that movie.
All right.
But I can tell you just rolled your eyes. Same problem in the up front of the movie, which was there were some tedious parts to it, correct?
Yeah.
But the ending was great.
All right. Well, to be honest with you, I didn't see the Cell Block movie because I'd had it with the Bone Tomahawk. Bone Tomahawk was one of those movies where if you're watching it with someone, or if you're watching it by yourself on video, I kept saying, I don't believe it. I don't believe it, and not in the sense of credibility.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe that it was so absurd, so over the top violent.
It was
to no purpose.
I thought that I thought that the villains were amazing. I mean, and by the way, I'm not a fan of that kind of genre. Like, I don't like zombie films because we have ISIS. Like, my whole argument is, like, I don't need to go look for this stuff.
Sure.
I saw a month of, like, beheading videos, and I'm going, like, I never have to see another horror film because life is horrible enough.
Sure.
Let me ask you, what is your favorite movie so far this year? What did you like?
Oh, Lord, it's not been a good movie. It's not been a good movie year, especially for American films. Got to say, the best films I've seen this year have not been American movies.
Right.
They've been films from Europe, which a lot of people don't bother to go see anymore. But they're missing out. They don't know that they're missing out. American films have been extraordinarily disappointing.
Yeah.
The best films I've seen this year, I said, were European, and actually they weren't even new movies. They're old movies. They're a revival of Visconti's Ludwig, about Ludwig of Bavaria.
Right.
And
I'm pretending to know. Yes, Ludwig of Bavaria.
That guy.
I have that on my list.
Maybe you're thinking of Ludwig von Drake. but that, and there's a Jean Cocteau film called Les Parents Terribles. And these are older films, but they're extremely relevant to what's going on in the world today.
Why are they relevant today?
Okay, Les Parents Terribles, particularly, I found that it was made in 1949 by Jean Cocteau, and it's about how parents mislead their children. And I think this is a serious issue that nobody's looked at today. You know, where do you think stupid college kids come from? Yeah. They come from stupid parents. They come from stupid parents who inflict their own egotism, usually their own leftist egotism, upon their kids, and the kids don't know any better. Les Parents Terribles nailed that back in 1949 because it's the truth. And now it's an ugly truth. And Ludwig of Bavaria was about King Ludwig who was in love with the music of Richard Wagner and wanted to build castles and be a patron to Wagner. But everybody else around him wanted him to be a politician. He didn't want to be a politician. He wanted to be an art. He was an art lover, and that's relevant to how some people have politics forced upon them these days, whether or not they want it.
Ooh, very, very interesting. So this raises a point I was going to ask later. You're a conservative, and you're a film critic. I would say you're a conservative. I think you're more conservative than I am. I think, right?
Maybe, probably about movies, but that's certainly a good thing.
I think you're conservative. I think, you're. I would consider you're religious.
Yes,
I'm
a believer. Yes,
you're a practicing Catholic. I'm trying to remember.
Christian, Pentecostal.
Pentecostal.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know why I thought you were Catholic. But you're gay. And so it's just, and you're conservative. This has got to freak your peers out, right?
Well, I don't conform to the checklist.
No, you don't.
So
you've actually torn up the checklist. You created a new checklist.
Well, hey, why should I conform?
Yeah,
I'm an American.
Yeah,
yay.
Yeah,
and I have the right to be what I please. And,
yes,
and so I am proudly what I am.
Do you ever get, as a conservative, do you get you don't really believe that argument from your friends? Because I assume you have friends in this entertainment world that you are in that when they they'll say, like, you really don't believe that when they read something. Do you get that a lot?
I have friends but no colleagues, and so I don't have to deal with that kind of question, which will come from colleagues. Friends know who I am.
Yes, and
with friends you share the same values. Okay. Colleagues, you may not share the same values. In my profession, especially, you might not even share the same brain function with colleagues. So that's how that goes. But,
who's your favorite film critic, if you like?
Oh, well, my favorite film critics are not employed by mainstream media because mainstream media tends not to want serious, real film critics. Yeah. My favorite film critics are people I went to school with at Columbia and elsewhere. A guy named Gregory Solomon in California, a guy in New York named John Dimitri.
I know that name.
These men are smart and excellent writers, but that's not what mainstream media wants out of a film critic. Mainstream media wants shills.
Yes,
and shills who go along with the audience of consumers who only want to consume and not think.
You know, my favorite film critic is Peter Travers. That's it. Anybody who reads film criticism knows that is like no one's ever said that.
I'm so glad you say that and laugh.
I don't think anybody's ever said, "Hey, I just read a new Peter Travers column and it blew my mind." What is like? It is weird though. Do you remember when you see these film critics, and and you go like, "Okay, are they on a payroll?"
Yeah.
I'm not going to say he's on a payroll, but you'll see film critics. When I worked at Maxim, you would get these ads for movies that were terrible in our magazine, but the blurbs would be like these people that you never really heard of, but they would be on every single poster.
Sure.
To say, I can't remember the names, but they were like, and they were actually real people, but they had to be like on some payroll.
Are they real people?
No,
there was that guy who made up reviews. Actually, the reviews were made up by Sony Pictures a few years ago, and that was exposed. But I wonder if certain people who call themselves film critics are even real people.
No, yeah,
because
Peter Travers, is he a real person?
Who knows?
Rolling Stone is not a real magazine.
Not anymore. It isn't.
No, it's not.
No.
So it's like it is interesting. It's like a shell of, but like Rolling Stone is a perfect, almost I guess, a metaphor for I guess Hollywood and entertainment and pop culture.
Well, they're following the bad trend of consumerism uber alles. That's all they believe in Rolling Stone and most other mainstream publications. I want to say about Peter Travers though, what he does, it reminds me of the dread Roger Ebert, who a friend of mine said, Roger Ebert figured it out. Mm-hmm. He figured out what it would take to be a success, not what it would take to be a good film critic. And so, having figured it out, what you do is you become a shill.
Yeah.
You sell almost everything that's released, and that was Ebert's. That's what he found to do. Mm-hmm. And there are others who follow that path.
I think I asked you this on Twitter, and I can't remember if I did or I liked a movie maybe it was this year called The Square. I don't think you liked it.
Yeah, from last year. There are things I liked about it, actually.
I couldn't tell politically I would assume that it was more liberal than conservative, but I didn't feel. And I also like Force
Majeure.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That director's previous film. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't care for that one much, but I was drawn to The Square.
That scene. I mean, let's talk about that scene, right? The scene in the
dinner party.
Yeah.
Well, that was the one scene I didn't buy.
Oh, I love it.
Sorry to tell you, but what that scene, the point of that scene is, and the point of the movie is to make liberal culture face itself,
right,
and face its hypocrisies. Mm-hmm. And even though that scene tortured them, you can kind of take some glee from that. I thought that was too obvious in that particular scene, but there are other moments in it that I thought making liberals face themselves is a good thing to do, because one of the problems we're dealing with today is that there is no self-examination or self-awareness. And that's what I took The Square to be about.
That's so true. When I'm flashing back in my head the specific scenes of The Square, of going to the apartment block, which is these are all about, and the art installations and all of these things are all about facing their own hypocrisies.
Yeah.
But the dinner scene, and if you haven't seen The Square, I would love for you to see this movie, because that I thought. It was unsettling because it seemed like a lot of people in that scene didn't know where it was going, and I read later that maybe that's a stunt to trick people like me, though.
It's called acting, Gregg. But the scene you're talking about is it's like a dinner for museum patrons, and there is a performance artist who is there at the dinner, and he decides to perform his act for the patrons, and his act includes brutality, brutalizing the patrons.
Yes.
And so you see them get what they pay for, in essence, which is kind of a wish fulfillment in some ways.
Yeah, it's brutal. I want to talk to you about some reviews. There were two movies that I went and saw based on your reviews, and I wasn't crazy about them. The one by the guy who did Fifth Element, and it was such a beautifully made film, but I got
Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets.
Yeah, so when it opens, it's absolutely stunning. It's probably one of the best designed films.
Sure.
But I couldn't maintain myself throughout it. And should I give it another chance?
You should certainly give it another chance.
Yeah.
Let me ask you though, did you see it in a theater or on DVD?
I saw it on demand. Yeah, so it's a movie you got to go see.
It's going to work. At home. It's going to work only half as well.
Yeah.
It's something that's really to see on the big screen. Movies are meant to be seen on the big screen, despite the trend these days. When I saw it, I had to pull out that word I don't use often, which is dazzling.
Yeah.
It was a dazzling looking movie. movie.
No, it was something. It was pretty out of. I remember I was sitting there with my wife and we're going, "Holy crap!" Like this is like why everybody's talking about the Blade Runner sequel and how that movie looked.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you about that director in a second. But this movie, I'm like going, this is insane.
Yeah.
Like, how did they do this? How did they do this? I don't know how they did that. Another movie that I went on your advice and I was, again, opens great, and then I got disappointed was by the guy who did Hedwig. It's his last movie about punk
John
rock.
Cameron Mitchell.
Yeah, it's this movie about the punk rock. How to ask a girl out.
How to talk to girls at parties.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a wonderful film. It's a wonderful film, and it gets to the title alone gets to the essence of what fanboy culture hides from itself. How do you talk to girls at parties? Mm-hmm. How do you talk to boys at parties? How to socialize? This is what teenagers don't know how to do. This is what arrested adolescents don't know how to do, and so they fantasize these sci-fi worlds to avoid that fact. Wow. And John Cameron Mitchell comes up with a sci-fi story that goes right for that.
You know what? See, I need to have you around after I see movies so you can explain to me what I missed.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm disappointed that you don't like the recommendations I give you. But I bet you, any movie I recommend to you.
Oh, it's always
is a movie that you will have to admit you've never seen anything like it before.
Exactly.
Okay.
I was getting around to that compliment. Is that it's like I never go, this is crap. Or I go, it's something that like maybe I wasn't ready for. I don't know, or I don't know what it is, but it's never unoriginal. Right. I know you're gonna hate this movie, but we were talking about I just mentioned who's the guy that did the remake Blade Runner.
Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah, very good. So he did this movie that almost everybody I know hates, but I like, called Enemy. I can see your eyes. I can see your eyes.
Why that one? He's made some wonderful movies.
I know.
Encendies.
He's a great director, but for some reason, that movie captured a really weird mood in the. It's the way he shot. I guess was that Quebec or Toronto? I think it's Toronto.
I forget.
But it was like the way. It was just such. It was every glum feeling he had captured, and it was just so. And it was so. I guess you would. I liked that feeling, and I could watch that movie. I recommended it to one of my best friends who wrote back. It just berated me in a long why did you waste my time? And then I was. Oh, by the way, I don't want to give away the ending because it's pointless, but the ending is great.
Okay, hey, there are worse movies than that one, than Enemy.
Yes.
He's made wonderful films. You really should see his first film called Polytechnique.
Haven't seen it.
Which
no.
is about a killing at a university, and his best film is one called Incendies, which is about the war in Lebanon and how the effects of that war come to a family in Canada. He's a real serious filmmaker, and there are not many of those these days.
Yeah, I find I like watching, even if the movie's not that great. I just like the way he shoots. It's just I don't know. I don't have the terminology that you do to describe movies, but I like this. I like the atmosphere.
There's
something.
There's great atmosphere also in his film Sicario.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's about all it had.
Yes.
But it did have wonderful atmosphere and a good music score, too.
Yeah. He's not involved in the sequel, is he?
No.
I saw the sequel.
Not that I'm aware of.
That looks like an action film now. What do you make of the James Gunn scandal? I have about 5 minutes left, and I wanted to ask you about this. He's fired from the Guardians of the Galaxy sequel after they unearthed these tweets that he had made that were pedophile jokes. Mm-hmm. So Disney just sent him out. What do you make of this new practice of scalping on Twitter and the left were so good at this?
Sure.
And now the right are saying, okay, we'll do it too. And now I'm wondering if if we will suddenly have a mutually assured destruction where people just stop, or is this just going to get worse and worse?
No, it's going to be tit for tat, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And sad to say, the liberals command the mainstream media, so they'll be doing it more often.
Yeah.
They won't stop because they're vengeful. They're what Pauline Kael called aristocrats of hate. and they know how to hate, and they'll do it more and more.
Yeah.
But my feeling about James Gunn is that the tweets he made were not just unfunny; they were also criminal and ugly.
Yeah.
And so I would say that he deserves some kind of censure for that. Mm-hmm. But also as a film critic, I think the movies that he makes show the hatefulness, the kind of criminal, what I would call a criminal view of humanity. Movies like Guardian of the Galaxy that reduce things to adolescent snark and nastiness. His films are ugly. It was no surprise to me that his tweets were ugly. He gotta go, and we in the film critic business will not miss him. Certainly, I will not, because his movies are as ugly as his tweets.
You know, when I was younger, I guess I loved when snark started. And I think it started, like, I can remember when I saw Heathers, and this kind of like, and I still like, I don't know. I think I tried to watch Heathers again, and I couldn't get through it. But what's the Ryan Reynolds superhero?
Deadpool.
It's like when I watched Deadpool, I was like, okay, I get it. I got to walk. I was after the opening scene. I was already exhausted by the relentless. Look how witty, and look at all the asides that I'm doing. And the aside, it was almost like when Robin Williams would go on a show and just throw stuff, and none of it hit, but he just wouldn't stop.
Right.
It was like
too much.
Yeah, it was too much, and it was just like I get. I'm supposed to laugh at all this, right?
I'm supposed to be a child again.
Yeah.
I went through childhood once. That was enough. and now you have movies like Deadpool and Guardians of the Galaxy, which are where nothing is sacred. Everything is simply to be laughed at. And movies do have a political side to them, and that's the downside of movies like James Gunn's films and the Deadpool movies. They make you disrespect life. They make you disrespect people. They make you hold nothing sacred.
What's your favorite movie of all time? Because I'm going to tell you mine, and then I got to roll.
I got too many. I got several, but I would say the G.W. Griffith silent film called Intolerance and the Robert Altman movie Nashville.
Nashville.
The great Nashville. Yeah. The movie of movies. That's how I think about both of those, actually.
Yeah.
If you see either one of those, nothing else will compare.
You're going to laugh at me? I know you're going to think I'm just a lightweight idiot for my choices, but I'm going to go ahead.
Only if you say La La Land.
Well, I hated that movie.
Oh, sure, you should.
I hated that movie. I liked Evil Dead 2.
Oh, that's a good one.
Sam Raimi's.
Yes.
I worked promotions on that, and I remember sitting. I was in senior year in college, and I was sitting. I had to organize a screening in San Francisco. And there were people that were at the end of, not just the end of the movie, but in that first couple of minutes when he's flying through the forest, people were literally dumbfounded. They didn't know how he did it. It was just something really special about how he created this other world in this cabin.
Sure.
And I've probably seen that movie 20 times. That same year, there were a couple other movies. I know you're going to hate Blue Velvet. Do you hate Blue Velvet?
That's fine.
That
was fine.
I thought that was. I thought Dennis Hopper was amazing.
That was fine. The David Lynch cult has overgrown, but that was a fine film.
Oh, I think that he's let people like me down since then on a lot of it's like I want some coherence. Yeah. If you can give me some coherence, I'll take the nuttiness. But if this is all nuttiness, it's like you need the caramel with that Snickers, you know?
Well, it's dream logic that he's got. I particularly like Mulholland Drive.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah. Well.
See points of agreement here.
Yeah. So what are you writing next for now? People can find you in National Review.
National Review, and I'm working on a piece this week for another European film, and so stay tuned for that. But I might get to the horrid Mamma Mia too.
Oh, I hear that's terrible, right?
Jeez.
But I like watching Pierce Brosnan sing. There's nothing better than that.
Better that than Meryl.
Yes, that was pretty bad too.
Yes.
And you also have a book called Keep Moving.
Keep moving.
The Michael Jackson Chronicles. I'm
Yes.
going to read this at the gym tomorrow.
I hope you enjoy it.
I probably will. I love your writing.
I feel that you will.
I'm a big fan. I've always enjoyed. It's so funny because I remember reading the New York Press and trying to picture who you were, like Armond White. I immediately think it's just an old white man, old angry white man. I was wrong on 3 counts. Not old, not white.